what I'm going to do is just hand over to Simon T. Can you inspire us with a cool data and AI project, please, Simon?
Thanks, Rhiannon. And yes, I will try. I also just wanted to give you a bit of a brief overview as to what we do as consultants. And our role as consultants is actually relatively straightforward, but it's to effectively inspire our clients through innovation as a mechanism to solve business problems. And if we think about that statement backwards for a moment, when we have to have a business problem to solve, that's really our sort of raison d'etre in terms of engaging with clients. We need to be there to solve a particular problem for them. But we want to use innovation as the mechanism in which to do that and to solve that problem, because without innovation, we're just effectively re-implementing something that somebody else has done before. And we want to create competitive advantage for our clients. So there needs to be that original thought, which is difficult, but there needs to be that original thought, that innovation around the type of solution that we come up with for our clients. And through that, we want to inspire them through the use of technology. We want them to think broader than just the one particular problem that they came to us with. We want them to understand what technology, in particular in our case, what data and AI can do for them as a business. Now, everybody that you're going to hear from this evening plays a key role in delivering on these goals. And Rhiannon asked me to kick off the session with a very brief overview and a demo of one of such of those projects. Now, the client in question is one of the UK's largest renewable energy generators. They manage just over 11% of the Scottish Highlands, and they use that land to for both hydro and wind to generate electricity. And as part of the wind farms, they have a particular obligation to the organisation that used to be called Scottish National Heritage. It's now called NatureScot. But NatureScot used to covenant them to not have an adverse effect on the wildlife within the bounds of a wind farm. And this takes about 10 years to prove on average. So from the point at which they decide they want to build a wind farm on a particular location, they need to study the environment and show NatureScot that they're taking it seriously and that the wind farm is not going to have an adverse effect, both prior to the installation and creation, but then also through the life of operation. They won't have an adverse effect on the wildlife. And their question to us was, how can we do that? Because to date, all they'd really done was erect cameras that would take stills every 15 minutes and then get students to analyze those photographs, and then they would extrapolate from there. So we took inspiration from some other projects that we've done, noticeably one that would spot wine bottles on shelves in supermarkets, and looked at how we could repurpose that. So the species in question were puffins, and what they were after was a way of effectively looking at and proving the health of the puffin colonies. So if I just share my screen, I want to show you a very quick video, two videos actually, one of where we started. And what you'll see here is a pre-captured video of some puffins using a data science algorithm that we wrote to identify objects. And obviously this algorithm's been trained to recognize actually 11 different species of birds, because we need to understand what isn't a puffin as well. So it's not just enough to see a puffin, but it also understands puffins in different contexts as well. So you'll see there, it changed slightly. We've got a puffin in flight. And then on the next ones, you'll see the puffins carrying fish. And this is obviously not that one, moving a little bit too quickly, but here puffins with fish are extremely important because that suggests that successful breeding has occurred, and they're now feeding the young as they've hatched. And then also spotting them disappearing into burrows as well. Again, it all helps to reflect on the health of the colony. This was a demo situation that we took from the client. And then what we then produced was a real life, and this is now live on the Isle of May, just outside Edinburgh. And they're using this now as a way of counting the puffins. And you'll see here slightly more information from the previous video. We've got the number of puffins up here with the total number of puffins seen. And this is actually the culmination of 3 different data science algorithms. We run them in parallel. The first one cleans up the image. The second one identifies on a frame by frame with a confidence level the object you can see, in this case, a puffin. And then the third one adds context, which is identifying the centroid of the bird and labeling it with an identity, because puffins are tricky little characters. They have this habit of turning their back on you and then they just become black against a black background. They're difficult to spot. So we put an ID on the center of the bird, and also then use a little bit of an algorithm that predicts their movement, so that when we see them again in subsequent frames, we know that we're looking at the same bird. And that helps for us, gives us a much more accurate count of the puffins. And this was a collection of different disciplines that we used for this. So along data science, there was a number of data engineers, some platform engineers helped us actually build this out as well. All at the time, we're helping to manage the customer's expectation. And we had two sets of customers, obviously the energy provider, but also NatureScott as well. We took both of those organizations on this journey with us, and it helped them understand how both data, AI, and technology could help them to solve this problem. It's been a great success. We're currently in the process of using this as the cornerstone of a video for Microsoft to help them publicize what they can do with their cloud technologies as well. So again, very, very useful project, very, very successful use of data and AI with a whole collection of the different disciplines that you're about to hear from as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simon. That's great. And you were so quick. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Awesome. So I'll just whiz back to my slides. Here we go. So kind of in summary then, we've kind of got the puffin solution that Simon's team delivered. So all of the volunteers here tonight weren't particularly working on this specific example, but I just kind of wanted to make it a bit more real for you. So as for this example project then, you would have a client manager who would normally be a key part of kind of winning the work and being that consistent kind of client relationship with those clients before, during, and after projects. And they kind of do all the contracts and arrange the team to deliver on the project and the enduring projects after that as well. Then you'll have a business consultant, and we'll go into these in a bit more detail, who will work closely with those different requirements from the different clients. So as Simon says, you have both the I can't remember what you called it. Is it the NGA? Simon, the Scotland National Trust.
NatureScott.
NatureScott, plus also the client themselves as well. And so looks at all those different requirements and then iterates on them as well, because they always kind of change, and then works closely then with, so that's more of a non-technical role, and as well as the client manager. Then you kind of get into the more technical roles, so the data engineer who's basically kind of bringing the data in, and this is super high level at the moment, but creates the data platform so that we can access and harvest that data. Then you've got the data scientists who, once that data is kind of in and harvested and on those kind of platforms, can then work at those algorithms to meet those requirements from the business consultant. And then you kind of got the data visualization consultant. So, you know, if you're kind of creating dashboards and you want to be able to kind of create reports and make alerts if something is happening, that will then the data visualization consultant will take both the input from the data scientist and the data engineer to create those. When all of those technical roles are creating the solution, you will need a test consultant to make sure that they haven't missed anything. It all kind of works together, and to really try and break it. It's a great role. Priyanka is here tonight to talk about it. Yeah, just to make sure that it's, you know, it's as bulletproof as possible, and also embeds kind of quality checks as well as much as possible, so that you can kind of keep tabs on that kind of into the future. So they're all pretty technical roles, those four. Then you kind of come into the project manager. So they are the ones that make sure that everyone is hitting their timelines. You know, if there are any kind of dependencies, they are kind of making sure that they are met, and kind of whipping everyone into shape, really. And then once that kind of project, so all of the projects I've kind of put in that light blue, then when that project is delivered, that solution is still there though, and so it still needs to be managed. And so there we have managed service consultant, making sure that that solution that has been delivered to the client is still delivering to the client in the future. Making sure it's meeting its KPIs, it's as quick as it was meant to, it's meeting what the contract said it should, and any kind of updates to the software and things are incorporated. So that's just a bit of a snapshot of kind of a high level. All project teams will look quite different, but it's a slightly different flavors and slightly different colors of role. I'll just go into a bit more detail of them. So my role is actually the client manager kind of role. So as I said before, kind of winning the work is a large part of my job. So competing for bids or looking at kind of extensions of work that I'm already there. So it's not to kind of look for problems, but it's to kind of help your clients if they have problems. It's to try and suggest ideas of how you might be able to fix it. Enabling projects. So when the client does want to go ahead with a project, it's making sure that I've got the right people, I've scoped it in the right way, it's over the right kind of time period, and all the kind of those commercials are in place. And then it's that client management. So managing those kind of high level client relationships through kind of multiple projects at the time. You'll have the kind of project manager and business consultant who are interacting kind of daily with the client, but anything that is kind of escalated or needs to be sorted will be the kind of client manager's role. Requirements is normally quite kind of a lot of experience either in consulting or in the particular sector, or a little bit of both. No kind of specific qualifications really. A lot of people do have a degree or do have kind of extra qualifications, but it's not normally kind of required. It's more about the experience. You need to be kind of personable, empathetic, pragmatic. You need to be able to get on and understand people and listen to people, both internally to your projects and also to the clients. Sometimes this is reached kind of through the kind of project manager or business consultant role because it's more kind of the non-technical. So the grades are normally kind of principal consultant and over, and normally you kind of require about kind of 10 years or so in the business. Cool. Okay, so on to the next one, which is business consultant. Britt, do you mind?
Yeah, no problem. Hi, I'm Britt. I've been a business consultant for almost 2 or 3 years now. So as Rand had mentioned, once the project's scoped and resources have been assigned, that's kind of when I begin to step in and really start to understand the business problem in more detail and understand the solution that we're building to fix that problem. So in this particular case, it would definitely be around requirements gathering, but for other projects, it might be running workshops to understand the current state, the vision and the strategy of the client. So where are they looking to go? How do we get them there? What are their priorities? What are the right order of steps to take in order to get them to that point? And could also be process mapping. So we've done some robotic process automation work where we'll actually have to capture processes step by step, identify steps to automate things like that. So wide range of things you can do depending on the engagement. In addition to that, I work closely with the data engineer, data scientist, data visualization consultant to ensure that they're understanding kind of the work that they need to be doing, and we're all aligned to hitting the client's expectations and objectives and timeliness, things like that. Throughout that, I think a huge part of my role is to highlight the business benefits of our solution. So I see myself a lot of times being in between the technical and the business, being able to kind of translate more technical terms into easy to consume business terms. So, we're talking about data science models, but what does that actually mean for the business, things like that. So I think that's a huge part of my role as well, which is probably one of my favorite parts of the role. Requirements wise, typically we need a degree, but not always. I personally come from a data and business intelligence background. I think a business background is helpful, but I've met plenty of people who are business consultants that have psychology background, sociology background, things like that. I honestly think the biggest piece is learning on the job and learning by doing. So you can study and read a bunch of books and have a lot of background context, which is definitely great and helpful, has been for me. But the biggest learning is by doing. So yeah. And then grades wise, yeah, can start as a junior consultant, all the way up to principal consultant. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
business consulting.
Thanks, Britt. Cool.
You're on mute, Ryan.
Is Larissa there?
No, I think that needed to be said. Are you on mute, right? If you don't say it, then this is not a call.
Is Larissa there? I can't see because I'm sharing my screen.
She's on, but on
She
mute.
is. She's on mute.
She's on mute, is she? I thought it was me. Shall I go on?
Sorry, I am here. Sorry, I just had my an alarm screaming throughout the house, and I had to go quick and stop it. So yeah, really
No
sorry
worries.
for that. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm very happy for being here, first of all. So okay, so what a data analyst does. So once the problem is sort of understood by the business analyst, by the business consultant, they identify lots of resources of data within a business, and someone has to put the understanding and the effort in putting all those data sources together somehow. So you start working with the solution architect and also with the business person and also with the data scientist in order to somehow collect all this information in one place, so that information can be after used for building up various, I don't know, data science models or visualizations in order to get an outcome from it. Okay, so what else? So to be a data engineer, so I'm doing this role of a data engineer for 4 years. When I started working in technology, I didn't heard necessarily about a data engineer because at that time it wasn't like big data wasn't such a big thing maybe. So I initially started as a software engineer. So there is basically no degree in data engineering, or at least none that I know about. So I started coding like in C# and doing software engineering, like web development. And after that, I moved towards learning more like data related programming languages. So I've seen that many of you ask, like, I think it was a question in the chat, if you need to have like strong Python skills or strong programming knowledge. So I think it is required depending on the level of the data engineering that you do. But when you start on an initial role, it is important to understand at least SQL. So once you kind of understand SQL, because a lot of the databases are like relational databases, so you need to write like SQL queries. After that, you can move towards in understanding a programming language, like and understanding more like object-oriented programming, like Python. So it's not like a mandatory skill that you need to have in order to start your career, but progressing towards in your career and becoming like a solution architect and so on will definitely require you to know a sort of programming language or something. So once you spend some time in doing this data engineering roles, you are actually expanding and you start learning more programming languages depending on the problem and the use case that the business people identified and so on. So you have to be very adaptive. So you need to somehow be willing to learn rather than have an already based knowledge in something. If this requires a degree, so personally I have a few degrees because I did some career change when I was 24. So obviously I will encourage everyone to do a degree, but it doesn't necessarily require a degree. Like if you are willing to put your effort and your spare time in learning how to code or doing like one of these online tutorials or coding schools, because I've seen lots of coding schools running independently right now, so you don't need to necessarily go to the university to learn how to code, or you can do like one course online and stuff like that. It should be enough to sort of give you the job. What else? Yeah, so usually you can start as an analyst in data engineering and you can move towards the principal consultant, and after that probably the next level for you will be like a solution architect, and then is when you are looking through the collecting all these data sets together from a different perspective and applying more solution-based stuff for the whole project, not only for collecting the data. And I think that's like 5 minutes, and I'm sorry for running downstairs.
That's
Thanks.
awesome, Larissa. Simon, is that your kind of background as well? Is that how you kind of got into the kind of CTO role?
I'm an out and out geek. I did computing science and software engineering, and have done for quite a long time, but it's not essential. From a business consulting point of view, the best thing is to be able to listen to the clients and have passion. That's the other thing. For everything that we do, a level of passion is so valuable. And the puffins, one of the things that happened through our project manager on that team is that we got exposed to the team that counts salmon. So in the hydro plants, they have to look after the fish. We're now working on a project to count salmon. So it's slightly more friendly than some of them where they shoot them out of the cannon, the salmon, that is. There really is a thing called a salmon cannon. Have a look on YouTube. It's quite frightening.
Thanks, Simon. Awesome. Okay, so you've won the project, you've understood the requirements, you've gathered the data, and then moving on to the data scientist, Josie.
Yeah, so I'm Josie, and I kind of like to think as data science as the kind of very tricky but interesting cross-section between computer science, mathematics, and data, and also business, a kind of understanding of the actual business. And you can't really start thinking about building a predictive model until you understand the problem. And so that is where, you have to work pretty closely with the business consultant to actually understand what the client's needs is. And then once you understand the client needs, then you can kind of work with the data engineer and actually understand their data. And you cannot build a model until you've actually done some analysis of the data. So what are the features in their data that are most important for what they're trying to predict? And then you can start looking at building a model. And I think this is where data science gets really interesting. And when I, use the word model, I use it quite broadly, because in data science, there's quite a broad range of mathematical methods that you can apply, and you can pick whichever method is most appropriate for the task at hand. So throughout my time as a data science consultant at Avanade, I've worked on a mixture of natural language processing models. So this might be something like sentiment analysis, judging whether a response to a survey is positive or negative, or trying to automatically detect what it is they're talking about. And then, the project that Simon Turner talked about, this was, object detection. This will be using typically sort of deep learning and neural networks and sort of really complex compute intensive methods like that. But I've also done something like time series analysis. And so the kind of most popular example of that would be prediction of stock prices and analyzing the stock market. And so there's just such a massive range of methods and things that you can use in the data science field, which, I think is what personally makes it so interesting, and especially as a consultant, because you get to work with such a wide range of clients and such a wide range of models. But at the end of the day, is you've got to build, as a data scientist, a solution for the client that they can then sort of go away and use and benefit from, that you don't have to be sort of hand holding them through all the way. You want to give them a product at the end. So this is where building kind of reusable assets that client can then take on and then gain insight from. So in terms of requirements, data science is probably one of the more kind of technical sort of fields of them all, and so as a result probably does have the slightly more technical requirements involved. So yeah, I'd say the kind of two main requirements. One would be in programming, and the other would be having a strong mathematical and statistical background. So typically a data scientist will have a master's degree, at least a master's degree in some kind of quantitative subject. So maths, statistics, physics, engineering, computer science, and maybe even sort of economics, chemistry, those kinds of subjects. And if you don't have a quantitative subject, it's also okay to have like equivalent experience. So you might have done some mathematics courses in your own time, for example. And in terms of coding and sort of technical skills, Python is the main one, but if you know R, that's also fine. Python and R are pretty interchangeable. We tend to code with both. But again, if you just know one, that's also fine. And because we do have to pull data from databases quite a lot, of knowledge of SQL and being able to interact with relational databases is really useful as well. And always version control. I don't think this gets said enough, but Git is a lifesaver, so learn Git. But at the end of the day, data science is just such an interesting subject. So I think if you're curious about it and are willing to kind of learn new techniques, because I said there's just such a broad range of methods that you can apply to client problems. So if you're willing and passionate about the subject and willing to learn new skills, that would, yeah, really, really set you good in applying for a data science role. And yeah, the grades are kind of similar to data engineer and business consultant, kind of all the way up from junior, might be straight out of uni, all the way through up to principal consultant. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Josie. That's great, because I know we normally get a lot of kind of questions about the kind of data scientist role. It's definitely known as the kind of the sexy, interesting roles. So and I kind of said this before, but that we are just doing them all kind of high level at the moment. But if you do have specific questions, put them in the chat. But also, if you do want us to do like a more kind of in-depth session on any particular role, kind of just let us know. Or if you've got any questions afterwards as well, just let us know. Awesome. Okay, so cool. So move from the client manager to business consultant, understand the requirements, data engineer, data scientist, and we're moving on to data visualization. Jessie?
Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me okay. Teams has been playing up all week. So yeah, as the data visualization consultant, I primarily work in something called the Power Platform. So I'll do some linking as well in the chat as we go through. So essentially, this has now come on to more of the front end work. So you've got all your data, you've got it all analyzed, you kind of know what patterns are being kind of configured in the back end, but now you need a method of showing it. So the Power Platform has something called Power BI. Power BI is a system by which we can build reports. So that's where I'd come in and build reports. We also have something called Power Apps within the Power Platform suite of tools, and that's basically, as it says on the tin, the ability to build an app. So this is now really getting that user engagement into the app, into your organization, and helping users basically interact with the data, either reading or writing or just seeing it. So in terms of like requirements, it says normally needs a degree level entry, but I know so many people that work within Power Platform that have not got a degree. It's one of those that you can really kind of build a portfolio and start doing your own learning, and not necessarily need a degree, and let your kind of portfolio or your past work actually kind of talk for you. So the Power Platform in some organizations is actually available for all employees to start using, and that's kind of another route in which you can take, so it doesn't have to be degree related. It says there are other ways that you can do data visualization as well. So Avanade, we do primarily focus on Power Platform, but there is Tableau, there's Click, there's other kind of ways of doing it as well. Similarly, yeah, grades are pretty similar to what's been spoken. So I'm gonna hopefully put a couple of links in the chat if it just, I've got nothing else open and yet I can't send a link. I will send that in a second, but what I'm trying to send you is, so I'm also I'm also a Microsoft MVP, which is basically an award given, and it stands for Most Valuable Professional. So the reason I wanted to mention that is, hopefully to kind of inspire you and talk a little bit about my journey in getting there. So user groups is a massive thing that helped me get where I am. So presenting at user groups. So there's a couple of you in the chat that have talked about, you know, do I need to have like technical skills? The answer is yes, if you want like a really technical role, but you don't need it either. But if you do want to explore kind of technical skills, so Python or SQL or Power Platform, whatever it is that kind of sparks your interest, there are user groups for like everything. So coming along to those really help build connections and yeah, teach you a lot as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is kind of the social media aspect of a lot of our careers as well. So it's not necessary for all careers, but especially for me, it's really helped me. I mean, I joined Twitter basically to start talking to people and reading Power Platform tweets, which is insane. I actually think I had a Twitter account like 10 years ago and I had to like delete that one to make this like a professional one. So I wasn't talking about what I had for lunch that day. But I mean, not that you can't, but I just decided to redo my Twitter account for that purpose. So yeah, it's quite surprising how much social media has really taken over even our work environment. So that's a tip as well. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's all from me.
Fab. Thanks, Jessie. Yeah, so, you know, kind of as you said in the role, like, you know, you do make a lot of, you know, the kind of the data visualizations themselves, but you have to kind of design them as well a lot of the time, right, Jessie? So you have to make sure that that kind of story is there and it kind of makes sense and is delivering that kind of those insights to the client, and working with the business consultant about, okay, well, what actually are the benefits, what is my client driven by, and making sure that those data visualizations reflect that, right? And
yeah,
including,
that's right. I struggled to get off mute again there.
No,
yeah, that's exactly correct. And like, you know, I'd work quite closely with the business analyst quite often to understand what those requirements are and to feed them in. And sometimes, there's a bit of wireframing involved. So reading a sentence in like a requirement saying, I need to see a chart that displays this, I then need to actually convert that into a chart. So yeah, that's where the skills come in as well. It's you know, anyone can kind of do the technical side, but you also need to kind of think about how to make that really useful for your audience as well.
so a bit of creativity as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot of that.
Yeah, and also especially with the current client, I know that you're working on a lot of training as well of the clients being able to pick up that what you've used, right, hand it over to them, help them be able to kind of use it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, fab. Thank you so much, Jessie. And yeah, in regards to the MVP, Jessie is just one of our, you know, superstars, which is a lot of the ladies who are here tonight. But there's, you know, there's a very few number of MVPs that kind of globally. So thank you so much for joining us, Jessie. Really appreciate it. Awesome. So one of our final, my dog's going nuts, I'm sorry. One of our final technical roles is the testing consultant. So Priyanka, please take it away.
Yep. I'm Priyanka. I've been testing for, I really hate to say this now, more than 12 years. So people can guess my age. But yeah, I like to think that I want to do a technology agnostic role, because I want to understand the solution, not what technology to use to test it. For example, I just don't see a solution and decide that I'm going to use this technology or the other, because there is no one silver bullet. You have to, there are many different solutions, and in most cases, we end up using different technologies to do something. So the best part is that we go in understanding the solution, and then we come up with how we're going to do it. How is not important. What we're going to do is important. And also, I get really close to the client. Let's just think about building a house. How the house looks like is a big part of it, but you also have to know what you want to do in the house. So I want to understand from the client what they want to do in the house. And then I come up with if our solution is going to provide them with what they can do in the house. So that's where I come in. I understand the solution, and most of the time I get all the help I need from my solution architect, people like Simon, other people in the team, people like Britt, data scientists, the data engineers. I understand from them how to do something. So basically, you need to have like some sort of overview of the technical knowledge, but you will get all your help you need from your team to be a tester, a test manager, and that's it. It is a good role from starting from a graduate all the way to a principal consultant. I started as a graduate as a tester. I was through being a test analyst, test lead, being a test manager. That's all I do. Yeah, that's it. That's me.
So how did you get into it, Priyanka? If other people are listening to that and that sounds great, I don't have to build anything. I can just test other people's and try and break it. What's your kind of advice on getting into it?
Yeah, I think it the more drive comes into it from laziness. If you think you are lazy, you don't want to build something, but you want to see that you are a critic at heart. Like I've seen developers are like moms. No one wants to hear that their baby is ugly. So if you are a critic at heart who can, tactically tell other people that your baby is really ugly, this is the role for you. But yeah, it has to be a really tactical way. You cannot. I just don't turn up say that your baby is ugly. I try to say it in a nicer way. But yeah, if you are a critic at heart and you are lazy and you don't want to build something, but you want to provide some kind of value, like is it good enough? What you have built is good enough, then definitely this role is for you.
Awesome, that's great, Priyanka, and I've never heard it described like that, but that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so that's our kind of four main kind of technical roles, and so then moving back out to kind of more non-technical roles, then we've got the project manager. Hudson, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sounds good. So as Rian said, I am definitely one of the non-technical roles. I've been a project manager for about 5 years now. And you do have some really brilliant technical PMs. I just don't happen to be one of them. And I don't think it's necessarily required to do the job and to do the job well. Because as you just heard, so many of the roles are interconnected. And I think the rest of the team is so enmeshed with each other that if you actually needed to understand any kind of development in further detail, you can turn to the developer for that. If you need to go to testing, you can get insight on that. So it's a role that it would be beneficial to have kind of a technical background, but not needed. So my job is very much pulling everyone together a little bit and serving as the go-between between the kind of client teams and our teams. So day to day or week to week, it very much depends upon what the kind of structure of your project is, but the majority of mine is effectively running all the project ceremonies. So making sure that we have stand-ups every day and that everything is tracking according to our own plans, setting the financials for the project and watching them, keeping the client updated and making sure, like anything else, that we're on time with the project delivery and within budget. But I think the more nuanced aspects of that is that you really just have to be a problem solver. So I'm pinged what feels like every minute of the day from different members of my team that are flagging an issue. Either something is taking longer than we've originally anticipated, or they don't have access to something that we need, or we don't have the answers to a question. And it's my responsibility to sort that out and to do it quickly. So to reprioritize tasks, to make sure that no matter what, we're able to get done on time, to go back to the client and flag anything very delicately, so they're aware of only what they need to be to feel confident in our own ability. And then on the flip side, I speak with the client every day, usually multiple times per day, keeping them updated about where we are, answering any questions that they have, and helping to shape what we're doing next. So that's kind of the day to day. And I think more broadly, Rian did mention beforehand that sometimes it's a project manager that kind of or business consultants that can go toward the client manager role. So I think the reason for that is because it's really just a continual planning with the client. So sometimes if you've got a project manager that they start to work with quite regularly, they'll say, oh, we've got an idea for an extension of this project, or we'd like to look into this. The project manager can work with the client manager to define what that looks like and to pull together all of the kind of statements of work that we need and plan out the work and things like that. So more broadly speaking, it's just quite a collaborative role. You do take on quite a lot of the responsibility within the world of the project, because you really are on the hook for making sure that you don't go over budget or that things aren't late. But beyond that, it is just working with everyone really to make sure that things run smoothly.
Awesome, thanks Hudson. So how did you get into project management? Did you have any kind of technical background at all?
No, I did not. I had a business background. So as you can hear from the very American accent, I went to school in the States, and I got a degree in international business. I came to the UK afterward and started working actually for Accenture, and started within their kind of program project management space. But I didn't have any specific background in this. I think project management, a lot of what you need to be good at it, if I'd be so bold as to say that I'm good at it, comes more down to, I think, just your personality than any specific background of skills that you might learn. Obviously, anyone else can adapt to it, and anyone can really be a project manager, but it's more about if you're organized and you can think on your feet, and if you don't get stressed out too easily when a million things seem to pile up at once, it comes down more to that. So you don't have to have any specific degree background to get into this profession. It's more just around maybe kind of who you are and where you're comfortable.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Hudson. Really, really appreciate it. Fab, cool. And so on to the last role, which is also non-technical. So when all the project is kind of done, kind of completed, it is someone like Louise who's kind of picking up the baton. So Louise, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, definitely. So hi everyone, my name is Louise Gwither. I'm going to be going through some of managed service, which is, I suppose, ultimately the support of a live system or service, whether that's kind of an application, hardware, software. It can kind of range from anything. And there are two kind of different aspects to managed services. So some roles are very technical and some are more business and customer kind of focused. So I'll touch on both as we kind of go through. So looking at kind of the Puffin example that Simon went through to start with. So once the project has been developed, delivered, the customer happy, which is crucial, they sign off, and it's something that there's going to be ongoing support. So, things could go wrong, something could break, and there will be a team that's kind of required to help out. That's where managed services kind of come in. So what we do is kind of spend time with everyone that's spoken already on this call. So all different roles to kind of run through what they do, how they support it, how everything works in total, I suppose. So that's across kind of developers, PMs, the data scientists, architects, to fully understand the solution that we should be supporting. And then we ultimately take control of it. So it's handed off from kind of the project team or the developers over into managed service. And ultimately we get involved where things break. So if something goes wrong, that's where we hear about it. So customers will email a ticketing system, and that's kind of where we jump onto any of the incidents. It's easier, I suppose. I'll give an example. So one of our customers is a well-known pizza company here in the UK. One of the examples of something we support is their website. So if that goes down, whether that's because of CPU, there are too many people in the system, networks go down, if it's something Microsoft-wide, the customers come to us to fix it. So we basically jump onto it. We have a number of technical resources who would be looking into a very technical resolution to get that fixed and kind of investigate the issues there and make things go back to normal. So how the customer would be wanting to experience things. And that's kind of the technical side, I suppose, of managed service. There's also a much less technical side, which is where I sit, which is a service delivery manager. So that is kind of a role who looks after each client kind of in total in terms of the issues coming through, any updates going around, and really looking after kind of the technical team, managing them, but also managing the customer kind of expectations and the customer side. We're often the ones who get our heads bitten off if we don't resolve things quickly enough, or get things done on time, I suppose. But we do a lot of kind of different work. So we do a lot of sales, a lot of PM kind of roles, but also really managing the customer. So we're the one that the customer kind of goes to if they do have escalations or problems. For the technical side as well, it's important to say, I guess, that you would need some kind of technical expertise. Often, you know, our guys are normally doing around kind of computer science, I suppose, at uni, but it's not necessarily required in the service management role as well. So I did politics at university, so that's probably why I chat so much, but you absolutely don't need kind of a technical background to be coming into a service delivery perspective. And as it's kind of put here, grades go through all from junior to principal, and that's across kind of the technical and also the non-technical area. So we've had a couple of people who have started as juniors who are kind of working their way through the different levels. And I suppose it kind of is learning on the job. When people say like no day is the same, that's absolutely the same. Nothing will break in the same way twice. And that's kind of
awesome.
that's kind of managed services.
Thanks, Lou. So that might be a little bit confusing, because so we have like a kind of project team. So if you're creating a new solution, you kind of got all that kind of project team, but then the kind of ongoing. So when that is kind of completed, the managed service team, I guess, is a little bit of a hybrid of that project team, but it aren't creating new things as such, but are kind of holding that baton for maybe a couple of years as well. So I guess Louise's as a kind of service delivery manager is a bit of a hybrid at the business consultant and the project manager kind of going forward, and then you'll have a bit of a hybrid of the other kind of technical roles embedded in managed service that are making sure that it's kind of ticking along and meeting it, but not kind of doing too much kind of new kind of development. So they are just kind of maintaining it. So they will be like, so if the project team might be building a new car, and then your managed service consultant and the managed service team will be the people that will be kind of fixing your car as you go on. So they have kind of similar roles, but it's probably more of a kind of shorter, less in depth, I guess. Awesome, that's fabulous. Thank you so much, everyone, for kind of going through and just doing such a high level, because I know that all of your roles are very, very hard to kind of describe on one slide and just in a couple of minutes. So really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for kind of asking questions as well. We love our jobs, and we like inspiring people to kind of get into it and realizing that, you know, data and AI, these might be kind of scary words, but you know, it's not kind of rocket science, I guess, but it can be rocket science. But kind of best of luck. Like, so a lot of us here from Women in All Things Data are kind of from Avanade. So I think Sarah and Nina are on the call, and so we are kind of doing a grad kind of program recruitment at the moment. So if you're kind of interested in working with any of us or just getting a bit of an idea of what we do at Avanade, then please have a look at the link and apply. But just from a Women in All Things Data, you know, completely agnostic of things, if you would like to kind of dive deeper into a specific role, and there is enough people who want to do it, we can kind of set that up, no problem. But you know, if I have learned anything, especially in the kind of COVID times, like, work is great and it is good to kind of love your job, but make sure that, you know, your happiness and quality of life and mental well-being is the most important thing. You know, you will always have a big team around you like this. And so, you know, your quality of life and being happy in what you want to do, don't feel like, you know, you've heard these words, so therefore, you know, you need to be the technical role, or you know, just make sure that you're doing something that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. And we are all winging it from the top to the bottom, I promise. So please don't be intimidated. And this, you know, the reason we set up Women in All Things Data is because we want to kind of have that relaxed community where, you know, people of any grade can ask questions and approach people. So please feel free to. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If you've got any kind of other questions or anything, let us know. But thank you so much all for joining. And thank you all to the volunteers for today as well. Really appreciate your time.